This is the all-new BMW M4. I say all new, but it's been in SA for a couple of months now, and I've just not managed to get my hands on one until now. And boy, am I glad that I did. You know the headline numbers? 375 kilowatts from a turbocharged inline six that produces 650 Newton meters of torque. This is the M4 Competition and it's rear-wheel drive. Soon enough, BMW will offer you an X-Drive version with all-wheel drive too. It's impossible to talk about the new M3 and M4 without mentioning that massive grille. It's been a point of contention since the day it was launched. I think with familiarity, people have just not noticed anymore. And certainly those people who have driven the car have not called attention to the grille because it's not the focus point. With all M cars, they're purely about the driving and the way they feed back and the way they feel. And I tell you what, BMW has nailed it with this current M4 Comp. It is an extremely accomplished car that brings back some of that M magic that perhaps some people found wasn't quite there with the previous generation. The inside of the M4 Competition is as you'd expect of a sporting coupe. There's lashings of carbon fiber everywhere, as you can see. This car has the optional carbon back seats. These are fantastic. They are so good. They have these grab handles and this carbon insert in the middle, which keeps your legs pointed and fixed almost like a race seat. Although I can't help but feel that the driver's seat is just a few degrees off center, or maybe it's just me. There's carbon fiber on the steering wheel. Of course, it's got shift paddles on the back end of the wheel rim, and these are nicer than any we've seen in a BMW before. They are chunky paddles. They are tactile in nature, and they are different for the upshift and the downshift. There are loads of options in terms of setup for this car. As you will see, you can set up the drivetrain, the steering, the brake response, the dampers, throttle, transmission. You can mix and match as much as you want. And then conveniently, you can just save it to one of these M buttons on the steering wheel. So you can find your perfect setting within the drive selector. Hold the M button. Hey presto, you've got it saved. There's an M2 button as well. So if you want a more extreme setting, say if you use your car on the track, you can save all those settings on the second button and use those whenever you want. One of the big changes for the M3, M4, this new generation is the adoption of an automatic transmission. In some ways, I think it's made this a nicer car. The old DCT system had a snappiness to it that, while was really cool on track, on the road you always were a little bit circumspect when you made a shift, because you waited, maybe it was going to unsettle the rear end. And that older car had this really odd, really uncharacteristic spiky handling trait that always left you second guessing its rear grip level. There's none of that in this car. The automatic transmission can be set for shift speed, so once in its slowest speed, behaves like any normal torque converter. Ramp up the speed and it's not as snappy as the DCT, but like I said, it's not a bad thing. The weather on the day we happened to shoot was atrocious, unfortunately. However, I've driven the car extensively on some of my favorite roads, and I was really impressed with the way it behaves. The wheels are massive, 19s and 20s. Though the ride quality is really good. You can feel BMW has applied a level of polish to the ride quality and then also to the damping when you really get going. It took me some time to get behind the wheel of this new generation M4 Competition, and as I said earlier, I'm really glad that I did. BMW seems to have spent a great deal of time honing and polishing the package that in the previous car had many foibles, especially at the start, and this car has addressed all of them from the get-go. Purists may not enjoy that automatic gearbox, but I think it makes the car better in many ways. The ride quality is great. The delivery, the power delivery seems and feels linear. There isn't that spiky nature of the car when it's right at the edge of its handling limit, and you're never quite sure what's going to happen next and how it's going to respond. And I think the M4 Competition has addressed a lot of those issues that made the previous car a little bit unlovable. I spent a great deal of time driving this car in non-rainy conditions, much better than we've had today, where we've had to shoot in the rain, which if you don't do in Cape Town, you're never going to get anything done. But I did drive this car in the dry on some of my favorite roads, some of the nicest twisties I know, and it is really impressive, and I'm glad that I got a hold of it finally.